All right, let's open up the Data Detectives Toolkit. Today, we're not going to look at data like it's some boring spreadsheet. No, we're going to treat it like a crime scene, one that's just full of clues. And our job? It's to find the truth that's hidden deep inside.
Because let's be real for a second, raw data is messy. It's chaotic. It's kind of like arriving at a crime scene and finding fingerprints, footprints, and witness statements all jumbled up in a big pile. The real challenge for any good detective is to bring some order to that chaos and let the real story emerge. And that is where our toolkit comes in. We're about to unpack the 4 absolutely essential techniques that every single data detective needs to master. You know, these are the fundamentals, the things that will help you solve pretty much any data mystery that comes your way.
Okay, first up is what I like to call the relationship compass. This tool is all about finding connections. It helps us see if 2 different clues, let's say 2 different columns in our data, are moving together or maybe moving in opposite directions, or if they have no connection at all.
Now, a detective has a couple of options here. You've got covariance, which is, it's a basic clue. It'll tell you if 2 things are generally moving in the same direction. But correlation, correlation is the real evidence. It gives you not only the direction, but it tells you the strength of that connection. And that is way more useful.
So here's the crucial part. Correlation actually standardizes the evidence. It puts every single relationship on this really simple, consistent scale that always goes from -1 to +1. And that makes it incredibly easy to compare how strong different clues are. So if you get a correlation of +1, boom, you found a perfect match. When one thing goes up, the other thing goes up by the exact same proportion. Think of it like 2 partners in crime, just perfectly in sync. If we find a +1 correlation between, say, late-night bakery visits and reports of missing garden gnomes, well, we've got ourselves a very, very strong lead. Now, a correlation of -1 is just as strong, but it's pointing in the complete opposite direction. It means the 2 clues are perfect opposites. As one goes up, the other one goes down, with that same perfect consistency. Imagine finding that as nightly police patrols increase, petty crime decreases in perfect lockstep. Now that is a powerful insight.
And what if you find a correlation of 0? Well, that's a dead end, my friend. It means there's no real straight line connection between these 2 clues. They're just moving completely at random relative to each other. Time to look somewhere else. Okay, our second tool is the time machine. And this one is absolutely critical for any case that unfolds over time, like tracking sales trends or stock prices. This slide highlights a massive problem. We look at that and we see a date, right? But a computer just sees a string of characters. It has absolutely no idea that January 2nd comes after January 1st. And that means it can't sort things by date, and it definitely can't do any math with them.
And the solution? That's our time machine. We convert that totally useless string of text into something called a date-time object. It's this special format that basically teaches the computer the concept of time. And once you do that, you can do all sorts of powerful calculations, like finding the exact number of days between 2 key events in your investigation.
Tool number 3 is the reshaping lens. Look, any good detective knows that sometimes you have to look at the evidence from a completely different angle to spot the pattern. And this tool lets us literally reshape our data to get a whole new perspective. A lot of the time, data comes in what we call a wide format. And it's really easy for us humans to read, right? You just scan across the row. But there's a huge problem hiding here for our analysis. The year isn't actually a piece of data we can work with. It's just trapped up there as a column header. And this just brilliantly shows the solution. We melt the data into what's called a long format. By doing this, we create a brand new dedicated year column. And just like that, the year is now a real piece of evidence that we can use to group, sort, and properly analyze our sales data. And that brings us to our final and maybe the most powerful tool of all, the grouping strategy. Now that our evidence is all properly formatted, this is how we start drawing real conclusions by summarizing just massive amounts of information. The logic here is beautifully simple, and it's called split, apply, combine. First, you split your data into meaningful groups. Think about separating a grocery cart into piles of apples, bananas, and oranges. Then you apply some function to each of those groups, like calculating the average price for each fruit. And finally, you combine all those results into a brand new, neat summary table. It is an incredibly effective way to turn chaos into real insight.
So, as we wrap up, let's go over the detective's code, a few key rules to remember. First, you'll see NaN a lot. It stands for not a number, and you should think of it as a missing clue, like a smudged fingerprint. You have to decide how to handle it. Second, an inner join. Sounds technical, but all it means is if you have two lists of suspects, an inner join creates a new list with only the names that appear on both of the original lists. It's perfect for finding overlaps. And finally, and this is so important, to analyze any trends, your clues have to be sorted by time, chronologically. You can't solve a mystery if your timeline is all jumbled up.
So there you have it. That's our deep dive into the Data Detectives Toolkit. We've covered the compass for finding relationships, the time machine for understanding sequences, the lens for getting a new perspective, and a strategy for grouping all your clues. You now have the fundamental toolkit. The only question left is, what mysteries will you go out and solve?